This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of bringing in a guru in this industry who you have not heard of yet. Hampton Lou coming in from North Arkansas. We're going to talk about calisthenics, online brand and community building, and whatever else we feel like. So, Hampton, welcome to your first Halo Talks.
Thank you so much, Pete. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So can you give us a little background on, how you started your journey and, how this became a full-time passion and profession?
Sure. And I kind of like to say that I talk to myself for a living, so I can go on for a while, and I want to summarize a little bit. But I've always really been into fitness. The people I grew up around were really into martial arts, so it just skews towards bodyweight fitness. Towards around 2018 or so is when I started thinking it'd be interesting to have some kind of online website, because I'm a passionate guy. And before I talked to a camera, I talked to my friends, and I was like, it'd be interesting if I had a blog or something. This was before video entered my head. It'd be interesting if I had a place to just record all my blatherings about calisthenics, fitness, health, things I read about and want to repeat. So that's when I started brewing. It didn't really get started until 2020. And the summary really about how I discovered this, how I discovered I liked it, and how I found what other people liked was really I hit record and just started talking. Mm-hmm. That's the best summary I can give.
Yeah, and there was no social media marketing. This was basically, information that you put out there, hit your network, and just started kind of proliferating from there.
It's actually really interesting, and we can hit it from different angles. We can hit it from high level philosophy angle or like business tactics. I can go either way. But I feel like most people who know my brand, if I said, "Hey, I didn't get into this for the money," they'd be like, "Yeah, I can get on board with that." But the funny thing is, I actually did. I initially, full honestly, I got into it for money because at the time I was taking care of my mother 24/7. That was when I started Hybrid Calisthenics. I don't want to get too much into it. It's kind of it's a longer story, but I was taking care of full time, and I was like, my gosh, when your family member gets sick, I don't know if either of you have had that, but at first it's like, well, I'm going to pour all my energy, all my money into getting them better. But then after a few months go, and you're like, my gosh, bank account is dwindling, right? And also I can't leave the house. I'm the full-time caretaker. What can I do? So this is why I started doing stuff that was work from home. And I was like, well, so I first started off as me making content. I'm like, okay, I'm going to sell them a course afterwards. And I don't mean in a mock but I wanted to sell them a good course, but I'm like, this is a way I can make some money from home. But I at the time I had no idea how to use social media. Really, I didn't spend a lot of time on social media prior to doing this. I had a Facebook account, and I spent this is low budget stuff. I spent like $10 running an ad of a video I did. And the first comment I got, it was from a guy called Kenneth. And he was like, Hampton, this really helped me. Thank you so much. Hey, he's like, thank you for sharing. My mother's sick too. This is how your video can help me. This is what I like to see more of. And that was a 180 shift for me. It was just like, I didn't realize, like, my gosh, this is a community that I can actually, real people that I can help. I wanted to help them before through a course, but now I just felt like what I imagine is like, if you see a child for the first time, I'm like, well, I feel responsibility to care for these people. Right. So that's really how I got into the mindset, my first venture into this area of like, well, I want to build a community and I want to spend a lot of my time caring for them.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of this information that you put out there, was it from your learnings and from the people that you surrounded yourself with back on the, martial arts side, or was it things that you were testing on yourself and like, hey, this is working, or is it more fundamentals that you were bringing to people to make it more accessible?
Both. I really do think just about every trainer or any person who has instruction, regardless of their credentials, and I'm a certified personal trainer, but I think most people, they really have to speak from personal experience if you really, really want to, like, at least from some level. Right. So yeah, I like I said, martial arts, I was raised by a lot of people who were really into martial arts, et cetera. So there was really like high repetition calisthenics. So that's really the stuff you often see on social media is like, just do, 200 push-ups, something ridiculous. But around my early 20s, I was like, I probably should have some kind of balanced routine. So that's really when I started researching calisthenics. I'm like, oh, wow, this can apply to the entire body. And really the thing that caught a lot of people's eye was, oh, wow, this thing can be regressed and progressed. So it's not just one push-up. You can also do many different types. And I think that was a core part of the brand, is that you can build up from what you're currently at. Because as people in the fitness sector, we often forget that not everyone is like us, like especially like fitness trainers. Not everyone wants to be a fitness trainer, to where we spend thousands of hours researching and working on this and experimenting. In the fitness business, we spend hours surrounded by these people who are very fit or know about the equipment, et cetera. So this is something that applies to a broad category of people. And I think that was part of the brand.
Mm-hmm. When you think about, doing your own production, being somewhat of a personality and being, vulnerable. There's certain instructors out there in this industry that, don't want to show anything except, perfection. And like, that's how they basically sell themselves. And then there are others who are, I was doing an interview with the woman from Soul Cycle who was doing the recruiting. And she said, look, I want to find people that are vulnerable, people that I can connect with, people that have, could share life experiences with. So was that at all conscious? Or was that, look, I'm just going to go out there. I'm basically in my home doing my caretaking and doing what's my priority. And I just got to give it to you real. Like, there's no acting here.
There is no acting here. And I mean, you can tell, because I also do a lot of live stuff. And I mean, if I were to put on a mask, a persona, I don't think I could have lasted this long. Right now,
Yeah.
I discovered some people like certain things. Like, oh, I like it when you show us how to build up. I'm like, okay, I'll do more of that. But like, once again, I was not really acquainted with social media. I didn't realize what would really stick. So yes, nowadays there's a lot of talk about being vulnerable, being authentic. It's a word being circulated around a lot, and it's true. And it's true, but it was not conscious. I just turned on the camera and I started talking. This is how I normally talk.
Yeah, yeah. As you got constructive feedback, what are some of the things you said no to, if any?
This is an interesting thing, because before the internet decided I was a nice person, I never introduced myself as a nice person. And because of that, people assume they can take advantage of me. So there's a lot of things that I say no to. So if you give me some examples, I can narrow it down a little bit. I've gotten very good at saying no, actually.
Got it. If I said, hey, I've got this event, I'm going to fly you to California for the day, but I'm not going to pay you anything. And, things like that.
Right. Okay. So yes, I say, so here's an interesting thing that I think can benefit perhaps a lot of viewers. I'm trying to deliver maximum value for your viewers here. I actually say no to a lot of brand sponsorships. And I have said no to a couple of meetings, exactly like what you said. One of them offered like $100 for a weekend, and it was for myself and my team. I was like, my gosh, I had to pay my assistant way more than that just to get her out to that state. I was like, I don't know what's going through their mind sometime. Now, then again, I don't want to think, hey, I'm so important that I'm too good for that. It's never that. That really just came down to a business decision, which was we didn't have the time for that. Same with the brand sponsorships. I ultimately think that we can really delve into this if you like, but then again, it's a separate topic. That was also a business decision and a personal one, because I kind of just want to talk about my own thing without peddling, without having something to sell the audience. Mm-hmm. But it was also a business one, because I ultimately think I can build better brand equity and not only be more authentic, but give more and make more for everyone overall through that.
Got it. Have you had any inquiries into either health club operators or fitness studio operators that said, hey, let's kind of package this up, either, stream it into my location or, become, part of my team nationally? To give you an example, there's some DJs now that are, DJs are partnered up with Orange Theory, Steve Aiko, right? So he does a compilation every Saturday, probably gets paid a lot of money. And that's kind of like his part of like the musical ecosystem. As I've been trying to go to the Stretch Labs location in Manhattan Beach, California, and it's waitlisted all the time. I think stretching and calisthenics, going back to the core of, and also in the senior community, we're doing some work there right now. Like, this is kind of like the base level of what you need in order to function. from a longevity standpoint. So I guess the question is, there's probably other channels that would really appreciate your content and your delivery. And I just wonder if that, is on the docket, or you've got your channel, it's working well, there's no reason to deviate from that, which is also In-N-Out Burger. I'm not adding chicken wraps to the menu, right? I'm sticking with what I do, and I'm doing it really well.
Well, no, so that's one of the things. I allow myself to be curious about things and explore different things. If you ask me exactly what I'm doing, not even 5 years from now, 2 years from now, I can tell you, I like base levels. I still want to be married to the same person I'm married to now. I still want to be doing hybrid, but like specifics, I don't know. Like VR could hit. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm really into that now. So we don't know. I think VR is a little further out, but no, I don't have anything like that on the menu yet. Now, there have been like inquiries that are related to that, but it would really depend on the offer. And that's something I'm always open to offers. I like to talk to people. So like not only being an internet personality is a good way to put it, but also just like being a business operator and discussing things and having these kind of meetings is also a hobby of mine. So look forward to it. Another thing I want to touch upon, I think, which is something that we can frame for viewers listening forward, is most of my information I've already condensed onto the website. It's available for the world. It's too late to take it down. Someone saved it. If I take it down now, someone can do this. If I try to sell it, it's already someone downloaded it. So if someone wanted to take my stuff in quotes, which is really just me utilizing gravity, so it's not really my stuff. Gravity's been around for a while. I guess they wouldn't strictly need my permission, and I'm okay with that because I have enough confidence / arrogance that I can be a decent enough business operator that I can keep the brand and business going and keep our employees employed through other means, not necessarily just through the knowledge.
Got it. Interesting. Now, as you look to build this business and rewind on who you hired and the sequence in which you hired them, is there any advice you would give to entrepreneurs that, whether it's diagnosing your own strengths and weaknesses, whether it's diagnosing, here's things that I have to do, I just don't like to do them, or I'm not that good at it. And, so I need someone to basically cover those functions that I don't get as jazzed up to actually, complete. Or was there something that said, I need somebody who's really good at this, that's going to further the revenue or the exposure of my business?
So this is a great question, and it's something I want to tread somewhat lightly on, just because I get a feeling, because I get really passionate about topics, and like I absorb a lot of knowledge, but I also recognize that some people have been operating longer than I've been alive. So I'm going to this is just from the experience, my brief experience of a tremendous passion of mine. I actually found the opposite of what I was expecting, because I thought that, like what you were saying, like I'm going to identify my weaknesses, I'm going to hire that out. That just didn't, in my brief experience, that didn't work out for me as much. Now it could have, it definitely could in theory, but I think just because of how young the brand is, I probably couldn't experiment as much as some corporations can. So I actually found that I worked with some friends and people that I knew. Now, you could call it luck or just anything, but I naturally identified the people within my network. And to be fair, I try to network with a lot of people that had the relative skill sets I need. Like, video editor. Just an assistant. I can do most things. And a big thing was experimenting. A big thing, especially for new aspiring entrepreneurs, is definitely experimenting. Because I didn't know that my assistant can do this, and I don't have to hire someone for $200 an hour to do the same thing. Whereas there are some things I was trying to train them to do when I was like, nah, I need someone who does it for a living. Video editing is a great example of that.
That's a great answer. Gotcha. So, as you think about your return on your personal time as an entrepreneur, obviously you're passionate, you love what you're doing. I was just watching the Derek Jeter, The Captain. It's a documentary on ESPN. And he basically said, every win on a World Series, all I could do was think about what's next. And I wasn't able to enjoy the moment or to take in the success of what was achieved in that season. So when you kind of take a look at, what you've accomplished in a very short period of time, and also continuously wanting to push yourself and provide content to the community and helping other people, how do you think about the next phase? Like, have you redefined what success looks like?
Okay, so these are that's a great preamble and a great question. I haven't redefined what success looks like. Success for me is just doing what I like and being happy and helping others be free and happy. That's so cliche, but I can't give another answer because it is true. Which is why I've repeatedly chosen freedom, which is one of the like parts of the brand sponsorship things, over money and people having leverage over me. Because another thing that early entrepreneurs have issues with, I recognize there may not be a lot of early entrepreneurs listening, is they rapidly trade their freedom for some extra money. And then they have to do things, right? A lot of things that you mentioned about the brand being authentic, that's harder when you owe someone $500,000 and they're like, hey, you need to push this thing that we agreed on. So there is that. Yep. And I love that preamble that you brought up to it, because if you ask my wife, what I'm more stressed about, I'm more stressed when we're doing well than when there's a failure. Because when there's a failure, I'm just like, I wonder what else we can do. He's like, I wonder what went wrong. Whereas when we hit like a new revenue high or whatever, I'm like, this is going to be hard to follow next month, and sometimes I can pull it off, but eventually there's going to be that valley, and it's like, and that's what for me, that's how I operate. But then again, overall, if we're going to zoom out, I'm happy overall just playing the game. I love doing it.
Yeah, that's great. Dave, you got any marketing related questions you want to chime in on?
Yeah. And I'll try and keep it short, Hampton, but maybe you could tell people who are listening here, what your numbers are now as far as your YouTube community. And you've built up an insane few million member community in, I think you said 2 years. Mm-hmm. And that's just incredible to me, because people are trying to get on YouTube and do what you've done and monetize and get sponsorships, and it never works. And you've managed to go into the stratosphere in a very short period of time. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that and how you did it and how you continue to do it, A, and B, what tips might you have for the fitness folks who are listening here, to potentially takeaways for their, Joe's Gym or whatever boutique fitness facility they have, or big box. What could they take away from that? Because as you know, hybridization is the next thing, digital, right? And in-person training is going through the stratosphere now. Pete was right. People want that face-to-face experience, but also now digital is in the picture, and COVID pushed that forward. So I think more than ever, gym owners are paying way more attention to social media, Instagram, YouTube, et cetera, than they ever have in the past. So I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions and tips for them as well.
Absolutely. And just before I get into it, you touched upon 2 to 3 topics, all of which I am extremely passionate on. So if I get into something and I forget about like one of them, just remind me and I'll bring it back. So The first part, numbers wise, so I was raised by very solid of the earth people who only kind of believe the internet is real. So it's hard for me because they remind me. So it's hard for me not to think these are just numbers, right? These are just numbers. It's the internet. It's not real. So we're about just shy of, I think we're like 2.99 million on YouTube. That's where a lot of people know us. So we're just shy of 3 million, and about, I like to say 5 to 7 million across the internet, because you can add up across, it's about 5 or 7 million. There's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. I multi-platform, and I got into it, and it would be hard for me. I don't want to misrepresent myself, because part of my success, part of what I've done so far is definitely due to the rise of short form vertical videos. So you look at when I started, I might have had an advantage that I started in early 2020. It wasn't a New Year's resolution. It was actually a coincidence that I started almost New Year's Day on the dot. It was interesting because that was around the time that TikTok was starting to grow. And that's why like YouTube Shorts came out. That's why IG Reels came out. And had I been on the social media scene, had I been in the content marketing scene for a while, it might have been hard for me to make that pivot into short form vertical videos, because it doesn't seem serious. Looking back, I do audio, video, written word, long form videos, short form video. I do all kinds. But this was close to the pivot zone of that. And the organic reach, as I'm sure you and a lot of your viewers know, was insane through the roof.
Yep.
Looking back,
Yep.
it makes sense. Looking back, smaller investment. It's easier. I'll watch an entire 1-minute video someone sends me. I'll put it off for years, like a 20-minute video. It's like, this changed my life. I'm like, that's nice, dude. Okay. So it's just, I think because I started around that time, I didn't have that mental barrier of like, well, this is stupid. So like, I was like, what's working right now? Like, so this is working. That said, so yeah, always look at where the market might be headed. Sometimes it's nothing, but that's definitely something that I think every person with entrepreneurial tendencies, whether like money or otherwise, needs to identify, is like not to dismiss early trends. Now, that said, a lot of people were also on short form vertical videos at the time. Why didn't it work? Why didn't it work, but why is there varying levels of success? I think a big part of it, from big time CEOs to people who are just starting off and living from their backyard, is the mentality of putting yourself on the internet. I think that's it's kind of a left field answer, but I think so many people, I was like, look, why don't you do some content marketing? And if they can't afford to hire someone, the answer a lot of the time is they saw a mean comment on. These are like serious business people. If they saw a mean comment on YouTube, it's like, I don't want that for myself. Right. Or my family, because they sometimes people assume they had to get their wife and their kids in. They don't want that for themselves. So that's a big part. And the third question, I believe, was advice to the general fitness sector in general.
Yeah.
Right? Now, just to specify a little further, do you mean like gym owners and people who are fitness entrepreneurs, or do you mean fitness content creators?
Pete, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'd be curious what you have to say specifically for the gym owners, the boutique owners, the big box
bricks and mortar,
facility owners. Right. What should they be doing? They have a staff of people that are working under them, right? The Group X instructors, the personal trainers, et cetera. What can they be doing?
So this is an interesting thing. So outside of just social media marketing, which has taken everyone's attention by storm now, some people already know this. I think some people, they need to be reminded, is that as we advance as a society, almost everything will become a commodity to some extent. So like you can offer some great machines, but someone else can offer a similar one. So like we're really into the assets of it, but something that isn't a commodity, and I don't think it ever will be, it might be at some point, is brand. So it's how other people will view you. And there's just right now in my town, there's multiple gyms. Okay. And I can think of a few that I would like to go to. And so how do we explore this brand? Well, before social media, you have to pay big money in order to really get big numbers to spread your brand, to even spread your message to the world. Nowadays, especially through the things I touched upon, that's why I started with that, with organic reach, short form vertical video, and podcasts, like you're doing. Podcasts are a powerful thing. People don't like podcasts because the numbers aren't as high, because you have to listen longer. But the people who absorb that are really into you, or they really know you and they really trust you. So that's why podcasts are powerful. So absolutely, if you have a gym, consider starting a podcast. If you did nothing else, but short form vertical videos where you showed clients working out, and you're like, and occasional success stories. They don't have to be high production. Look at I have like thousands of dollars of video gear now, and someone with like a very like $20 smartphone, is getting more views than I am on TikTok. It's not production value. It's how much people resonate with the content. So if you're a gym owner and you do nothing else but post consistently on social media, short form vertical video right now on multiple platforms, because that's where your clients are, and a podcast where you just talk with anybody you want, athletes that you bring in, trainers that you bring in. It's like, hey, our trainer talks about 10 common misconceptions about losing weight or whatever, and just post that on Facebook. People are like, I want that. And also clients, success stories. People want to hear like, hey, this person was just like me. Sometimes people want to hear from they're not idol, but like what they aspire to be like. And other people want to be like, no, this person's on the same path I'm on. Another thing, if you're a gym owner and you're like, I don't know anything about starting a podcast, there's an app you can start really simply. And it is surprisingly, you'd be surprised, as I'm sure you all know, who you can get on a podcast. right? It's like there's right. It's like people that you wouldn't think you can. Like someone got an astronaut. My friend got an astronaut, and he just emailed him, and like no one had really asked the astronaut to be on the podcast. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I'll talk about my thoughts on this. So you can get that person's following if they have a following, and you can provide a lot of value to your viewers. So short form, long form, and also in between is what I would say.
Love that. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, so Hampton, we wrote a book which you'll like, so we'll send you a couple copies. It's called Time to Win Again, and it's 52 takeaways from team sports to ensure your business success. So take your time outs, treat your employees like professional athletes. Everybody's got to wear a uniform. So we'll it's kind of a Where's Waldo caricature book meets Good to Great. So we'll send you a couple copies of that. We'll post everything up on the show notes. This is great info for our community. Just in closing here, you got any awesome quotes either that you've made up yourself, which because you're so creative and talk to yourself, like I do out loud, or anything that kind of is like a guiding force for you or phrase?
Yeah, this is what I'll say, because keeping in mind, so for fitness wise, I like to tell people that you can push yourself and love yourself at the same time. That might be too foofy for your listeners, but it's true. And it also applies to entrepreneurship, because sometimes I'm too rough on myself. And sometimes I'm like, well, I need to kick myself a little bit harder. And I'd like, people would be surprised, as nice as I am to them, how I talk to myself internally. But I know I love myself, so I can be hard. Like, Hampton, you're such an idiot. Why would you do that?
Right.
Okay, so but I also know that I love myself, so I can do that. But here's something that I like for entrepreneurs and business owners, because it's something that we need to remember. I like to say like 99% of things don't matter if you have good intent, right? So like everything, like you think about all your business failures right now. You're like, it was like earth shattering at the time. It's like a gut punch. 5 years later, if you survive, then you're like, oh, I'm still in business. People I like are still alive, right? So it's not to say we shouldn't learn from our mistakes. It's just that I've seen some friends, because I have a lot of friends that are with me on my journey, right? Some are content creators, some are in-person business owners. And some of them, they take a gut punch and they just dwell on that for years, sometimes decades. Like, man, I can't believe my friend stabbed me in the back. I can't believe my business partner sold me out here. All those things have happened to me too. And it's just like, if you dwell on it, instead of moving on, that really holds you back. If it's your fault, if it's someone else's fault, keep in mind that in the grand scheme of things, a lot of the stuff doesn't matter. Very few things do. Keep good intent, keep trying to help, keep going forward is what I would say.
Awesome.
Love that.
All right, man. Well, I see you. We'll do a nice fist bump. So
all right.
I do this with my nephew. We do 1, 2, 3, and then we do hard work, like a very deep voice. So let's do one together here virtually.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Hard work.
There we go.
Hard work.
That was right.
We're in. Hey, listen, as you kind of go through this journey, we've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. I've been an entrepreneur. Dave was as well. He ran a kettlebell training and a certification company. I say experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. So I got a lot of experience. That's why we're advisors. We do a lot of financial related deals. I also tell people that, the earth is moving at 66,000 miles around a fireball and rotating at 1,200 miles an hour. And it's 95 million miles away to get to the sun. So like what you said about gravity, like gravity is pretty much the only thing that really is important, or else we should all buy like a concrete, machine company and just like pad people down on the planet. So awesome work, man. Thanks for getting on with us. We'll send you some books. Dave, get his address. We can
absolutely. Hampton, really, thanks for doing this, and continue best of luck to you, man. Seriously.
Thank you so much. Reach out if you need me. Thank you.
All right, take care.